You're trying to build muscle, you're putting in the work, you're going to the gym, but when it comes to the nutrition side of things, where do you even start? Hey, I'm Aaron. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach, and in this video, we're going to be going over how to improve your nutrition to gain muscle, to get in shape in the simplest way possible. Let's jump straight into it. First up is going to be priority number one, which is energy intake. Are you eating enough to support the goals that you have? When you're trying to build muscle, you're going to need to be in a slight surplus. Your body will then use those calories to help create the muscle that you're trying to build. And without enough food, it simply won't happen. It's going to halt your progress and prevent you from going forward. However, for many people that start going to the gym, this can actually be quite challenging. This really rings true if you've really struggled to gain weight in the past. The advice of just eating more can sound simple, sure, but in reality and in practice, what does that actually look like? Adding to that, sometimes when you're training hard, that can actually suppress your appetite, making it harder to eat more and harder to reach your goals. If you are someone who wants to lose a bit of body fat and try and focus on building muscle, what you want to be trying to do is potentially reducing your food just a little bit and then focusing on the protein content, which is what we're going to get into in just a moment. So let's jump into some practical ways that you can start to eat more. If you've struggled to eat more food in general and you're struggling to put on weight, these are some things that you can practice. Firstly, we want to focus on eating complete meals. Often when we think we're eating heaps, it's more often that we're actually eating smaller meals and a lot of snack options throughout the day. This then gives us the illusion that we're eating a lot of food, but in actual fact, we might be eating a lot of small things, but not enough of the right stuff that actually counts. Another way is to think on a continuum. So if we imagine a scale from 1 to 10, when do you stop eating? At what point do you fill up and you go, I'm going to stop eating here? If 1 is really, really hungry, 10 is really, really full, think about where you would stop eating. And then also think about where you sit when you start eating. If you are struggling to gain weight, aim to increase the point at which you stop and try to start eating earlier than when you normally would. So for an example, if you normally wait until you're physically hungry, you actually feel those physical hunger signals, what you might want to be trying to do is starting to eat just before you feel those physical hunger cues, so you're not really, really hungry before you start eating. And if you stop eating just at the point where you're satisfied, maybe what you want to try and be doing is pushing that just a little bit more, starting to look at, can I go from say an 8 out of 10 up to an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10. The next thing you don't want to be doing is discounting high calorie foods, things like rice, pasta, etc. These will help you get in those extra calories from your main meals. They're also a great way to bulk out some of your main meals, and they won't fill you up as quickly as some of the other higher fiber foods that you might eat, such as vegetables or even whole meal varieties of carbohydrates. So moving on, the next thing we want to look at is priority 2, macronutrients. This is the breakdown of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. To keep this super simple, we won't be going into specific amounts and percentage breakdown, etc. But as long as you're in the ballpark, you're 80% of the way there already. You can always adjust it later on to suit your specific goals, your specific needs. Eating well consistently is the name of the game here. You don't need to be eating chicken and broccoli all day long, but at the same time, you don't want to be filling up on lower quality food either. Finding a balance that works for you and making small consistent changes over time will ensure that you get the best bang for your buck. Here are some really simple guidelines that will put you in the ballpark for getting enough of the right things. Think about each meal that you eat and try to get a balance of each macronutrient in each of those meals. So with each meal, try to include 1 to 2 palm-sized portions of protein. Each meal should have a fist-sized portion of vegetables or fruit. Each meal should aim to have 1 to 2 thumb-sized portions of fat. And most meals should contain a cupped hand portion of slow-digesting carbohydrates. Now, this might sound like a lot, but rather than trying to get it perfect from day one, just try to get your meals as consistently close to those guidelines as possible. Then once you can start to do it consistently, then you can start to tweak things a little bit further. For example, you might find that you're not eating enough protein throughout the day. Starting off with 1 palm-sized portion of protein at each meal is a great start. When you can do this consistently, you might then look at bumping that up to 2 palm-sized portions at each meal. To meet these macronutrient guidelines, you want to try and do this with your food first and foremost, rather than turning to a supplement to try and fill the gaps. While supplements are great, if your diet's lacking a good base, they simply won't do anything for you. Some great examples of protein sources are lean meats, poultry, seafood, eggs, and egg whites. These can also be purchased separately in the frozen section of most supermarkets. And lean dairy products. They have a slightly higher protein content than the full fat varieties. Some step-up options for protein. Once you've mastered the basics, you're eating plenty in your meals. Some supplements that you could look to add in here are high quality protein powders. You want to be looking for things like whey protein isolate, casein, or egg protein. Essential amino acids are another one. These can be used during training or after training. Some great examples of slow digesting carbohydrates are colorful starchy vegetables, such as sweet potato, squash, etc. Colorful fruits, things like berries, strawberries, raspberries, etc. Sweet and starchy fruits and vegetables, so things like bananas, potatoes, and other root vegetables. Beans and legumes, things like black beans, chickpeas, kidney beans, etc. And unprocessed grains, so things like white and brown rice and quinoa. Some step-up options for carbohydrates are things like fine powdered oats and carbohydrate powder. So these are really great. They can be added to your protein shakes to bump up the calories in that shake. A green supplement, this can help plug some of the holes in your diet with regards to vitamins and minerals that you would get from fruit and vegetables. However, they're not going to do the heavy lifting. You still do need to eat fruits and vegetables. Some examples of healthy fats. So here we're looking at things like raw nuts, almonds, macadamia nuts, walnuts, etc. And seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, avocados, coconut butter, and coconut milk, extra virgin olive oil, and fresh olives. Fatty fish, things like salmon or mackerel, etc. Fattier cuts of meat, for example like lamb, butter, and high-fat dairy. Some step-up options for fat include fish oil tablets. So you want to be looking for ones that have high levels of EPA and DHA per capsule. So moving on, the next thing we need to look at is priority 3, staying consistent, setting yourself up for continued success. Eating to gain muscle or get the most from your training is just as important as the training itself. The more consistent you can be here, the more consistent you will see the results you want. Think about which areas you might need to focus on first. Is it the energy intake overall, or is it the macronutrient breakdown? Then look at practicing each day by working on one thing at a time. Just like going to the gym is a habit you're trying to keep going, eating consistently and consistently well is also a habit that you want to keep going. It's a skill at the end of the day that needs to be practiced often. So some things to consider to set yourself up for success. Buying things in bulk can make it much easier to hit those targets. For example, buying bulk packets of rice and then cooking those up and storing them away so that you can ensure that you have one cupped hand-sized portion of carbohydrates at your meals is a really good start. Another example is you might try and buy extra tins of tuna and chickpeas that you can have on hand. This is a way that you can add extra protein to a meal, or you can take them with you when you're not eating from home and you might not have meals prepared properly. This is a great thing to do if at work you only have a limited time to eat a meal. You can quickly add a tin of tuna or some chickpeas to a meal, boost up that protein content. So moving on, we want to be looking at tracking your progress. With your training, your numbers, things like the reps, the weight, should be progressing on a consistent basis. This creates the demand for your body to change and to build muscle tissue over time. If you're not creating any small progressions with your training, no matter how good your eating is, you simply will not grow. The other thing you want to track is your body measurements. You could do this using a tape measure around the specific muscles themselves. You could use things like progress photos, or you could even just rely on watching the scale weight on a weekly basis and tracking the progress that you're making. So some good rates of weight gain depend on your training experience. In the beginning, when you're really new to this, you're likely to see really fast results because it's a new stimulus overall that your body's not really used to. As you keep training, these results slow down a little bit, but you will still see the changes if you're consistent with this. So if you're a beginner, you should be looking to see a 1 to 1.5% of body weight increase per month. If you're an intermediate, so you've been training for a little bit of time now, you can expect to see about a 0.5 to 0.75% of body weight increase per month. And advanced lifters, so if you've been lifting for quite a number of years and you are quite experienced with this, you'll be looking anywhere from about 0.25% to the 0.375% of body weight increase per month. So these are just average numbers too. They'll likely be very different for each person, and the results are not always linear. They will not always just keep going up, and you won't always just see an increase. You might have a really good few months where everything is super consistent, your training is going awesome, your eating's going awesome, and you're actually exceeding those numbers. And then you'll have other months where things might slow down quite a bit and you're not seeing the results as quickly. That's normal, and it's all part of the process. Gaining muscle is a long game. It's not going to happen overnight. It takes hard work in the gym and also hard work maintaining your good eating behaviors. Keep that in mind and don't feel discouraged if it seems kind of slow. Oftentimes we can fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others who have the results that we may want. The part that we don't see is the hard work that that person has been putting in with not only their training, but their eating as well, and how they track their own individual progress. So in conclusion, putting this all together doesn't have to be super complex. We've covered a lot in today's video, and a lot of it comes down to a simple, no-nonsense approach. The true results come from being super consistent at doing the basics over and over again. So to wrap up, here's some really quick steps that you can take following this video to get you on the road to starting to improve your nutrition. Step number 1 would be to add in some omega-3s daily, either by eating whole foods such as more fish or through a supplement such as fish oil. This will help you get the fats that your body needs. Step 2 would be to add lean protein to every meal. Shoot for that 1 to 2 palm-sized portions of protein. Step 3, add colorful fruits and veggies to every single meal if possible. Step 4 would be to adjust the carbohydrate types more towards the slow digesting kind of carbohydrates that we went through in this video, and the amounts as well, using that hand cup size portion at most meals. So that's it for this video. I hope that was really helpful, and I hope you got some great takeaways from this. If you did find this helpful, you might also like this video here that other people have found helpful too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.